रहमान राजी होगा, रहमान राजी होगा, रहमान
Musically, yeah?
राजी होगा।
Yeah, can you leave it? I can see my Habib.
चांद चमका
He
माहे
said,
रमजाया, निखरा निखरा हर एक चेहरा माहे रमजाया, देखो फलक पे चांद चमका माहे रमजाया, निखरा निखरा हर एक चेहरा माहे रमजाया, माहे रमजाया, पूरे महीने रोजे रखना, पूरे महीने रोजे रखना, मुझको रमजान का महीना अच्छा।
At-Tajir is brought to you by Old Mutual and Al Baraka Bank. Invest with faith. To find out more about our Sharia funds, visit oldmutualinvest.com/Sharia or contact your financial advisor.
This program is sponsored for Marhum Ibrahim Musa and Hanifa Katrada and all Marhumin.
A space for growth and development. The Skills for Success program will help you to improve yourself and gain valuable skills while keeping you connected to the Deen with the expert advice of Mufti Yusuf Musaji. The Personal Skills Development segment is the platform to upskill and advance your individual growth. Get your questions answered live on air on the Q&A segment. The Skills for Success program, every Tuesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Radio Islam International, your progression and development station.
في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور، يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور، واطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the At-Tajir program on Radio Islam International. My name is Habib Bobat, and inshallah I'll be keeping you company this morning right up till 10 a.m. We have Mufti Yusuf Musaji joining us this morning all the way from Qaybeha. Mufti Saab, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mulana, I see, even though you haven't been visiting Qaybeha that often, but your pronunciation is getting better of it.
Yeah, when you mix with the people and the community, you take on the culture, you take on the language and everything. So now we can say ta'ahaltu fi Port Elizabeth.
SubhanAllah.
Mufti Saab, how's Ramadan going? Second half started, alhamdulillah. People are getting ready for I'tikaf. What's the vibe like there in Port Elizabeth? I know in Cape Town they have the Boober. Once they pass the 15th fast, then they have the Boober to say they made it through, Anything like that in Qaybeha?
Yeah, there was at the Masjid al-Taqwa. So it's after the 15th night, after the 15th fast. So it's called Uriberg, that you're over the mountain. And also another, and then another interesting culture that goes with that is that after the 15th fast, well, I don't think this is going to sit well with you, but maybe not with you, but the family members, that there's no more savories. So it's a very plain iftar after that for the rest of the month. So for the remaining 14 days, it's a plain iftar. There's no savories, there's no douchies and all the other things that usually goes on the table. So there is another part of it that goes with that 15. So, yeah.
Subhanallah. Interesting indeed. Yeah, you mean the ladies get a time out now? At least they can make more ibadat and don't stress of so many savories and all of that.
Yeah, I suppose if you look at it in that way.
Anyways, the number to keep in mind, 072-786-1548. As you know, in the second segment of this program, we take your questions and Mufti Saab tries to answer them as best as possible. And in the first segment, we have the personal development segment, and here we are discussing mental health. Mufti Saab, so let's start off. Why is mental health so important?
So this word mental health is being thrown around quite a bit these days. Mental health is a term used to describe emotional, psychological, and social well-being That's it. It's your emotional, your psychological, and your social well-being. So it is the quality of a person's mental health is it's often measured by how you can manage and cope with your everyday life, with all the stresses that you've got to experience living in this world. And mental health allows people to use their abilities to be productive, to make decisions, and play an active role in their communities. And having poor mental health is often confused with mental illnesses. So mental health actually refers to a person's state of mental well-being, whether or not they have a psychiatric condition. Now, why does it matter? Taking care of our mental health, it aids in our resilience. It aids in our recovery from anything that happens. Anyone can have a bad day, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad life. So how we respond to it and take care of our mental health is very important. Mental health is important at every stage of our life. It encompasses our overall well-being and affects our life in many ways. In fact, one more point here that just for the United States of America, research has shown that 1 in 5 adults in America, that is 43.8 million people, experience mental illnesses, which is 18.5% of the total population. So this means that mental health issues frequent the population of America, and I suppose we can use that as a specimen for the rest of the world.
So, what does Islam say about mental health?
So the Andalusian scholar Ibn Hazm, rahimahumullah, he says that he searched for a common goal amongst people, and he says he applied his mind and exerted himself. And one thing that he found that every human is searching for, and he said that everyone wants to vanquish and overcome their personal and collective anxieties. That is it. Vanquishing, overcoming your personal and collective anxieties. So that pursuit of emotional balance, the diminishing of anxiety, stress, depression that we have to deal with is a universal thing. And it continues till today. So what is the Islamic position with regards to mental health? On the one hand, there is the extreme, one extreme we commonly hear that people say, did Nabi Sallallahu ever see a psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist? What is all this modern day nonsense? Sahaba radiallahu anhum had difficulties, they had challenges, they had 3 stones tied to their bellies. Did they go to a psychologist? Did they go to a psychiatrist? Did they need to go for therapy? So that is one view that you have. Another view is, where people look at it and they take it to the next level in terms of, present day, where everything is a mental health issue and everyone seems to be having mental health problems. So we are ummatan wasata. We find the middle path, that we do not deny the existence of mental health issues, nor do we go to the extent to say that everything is just mental health issues. The Islamic position is that, there are several reasons why we have circumstances. It may be physical, it may be biological in your genes, it may be emotional, it may be psychological, it may be spiritual, it may be even metaphysical or supernatural, like we're talking of jinn, jadoo, black magic. So all of these things do have an effect and do play a role. So that is what we need to understand in this regard, that there is a space for it. It is in the hadith that ma anzalallahu da'an illa anzalahu lahu dawa'an. For every sickness, Allah has sent a cure. This does not apply to the physical ailments and sicknesses, but it also applies to the mental and emotional ones. So our minds, our thoughts, our feelings, we need to care for it frequently. We need to care for it purposefully. And mental health is, in other words, it's governed by the fact that we need to look at these things and take the necessary steps for the care of it, dealing with the issues of anxiety, depression, worry, and things like that. So in a nutshell, that is, the Islamic position. What you would say, it's a middle one, it's a moderate one.
What is the legacy? What's the legacy when we look at this from the Islamic perspective, when we look at the history of mental health in Islam?
So what is our legacy in this regard? Let's look at the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, the famous story of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, where Nabi Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam says, Ya asafa ala Yusuf, that oh my grief over Yusuf, oh my depression over Yusuf. So, the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam also had what we could term as emotional challenges. When we look at the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is termed as Amul Huzn, that after 3 years of social and economic boycott, which had its own stresses, seeing your children suffering, it is said that Sayyidah Fatima was still a young girl at that time, cry out of the pangs of hunger, cries echoing in the valley. Can you imagine, what that seeing your child crying out of hunger, what impact that would have on the psyche of parents? So this particular situation that the Prophet ﷺ had to deal with, 3 years of economic boycott, Sayyidah Khadija passing away, and then Abu Talib passing away, then he goes to Taif, and we know what happened in Taif. So that is termed as Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow, the year of sorrow in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So, even before that, when we look at the first revelation, how did the Prophet ﷺ respond to that? Zammiluni, Zammiluni, Dathiruni, Dathiruni. Nabi ﷺ was anxious, he was worried that the revelation had come, and Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala consoled him. So there was the period of Fatratul Wahi also. So when we look at all of these things, we see that there were difficult times that the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam had gone through. And when we look at the hadith of the Messenger, the dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-huzn, a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasl, a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl, a'udhu bika min ghalabati ad-dayni wa qahri al-rijal. That when we look at what is the wording of this hadith, I seek protection from hum. What is hum? Hum is anxiety. Hum is constant worry and fear, where you become agitated, restless, you're at edge all the time. Everyone gets on your nerves. Huzn is sorrow. The word is used, Nabi Sallallahu used it when his son, Sayyidina Ibrahim radiallahu anhu, passed away. وَإِنَّا بِفِرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونُونَ. That we are deeply sorrowful, we are sad by your departure. Then the other words of the hadith is ajz, which is inability. When you have a bleak outlook and you start wondering that will things ever get better? A kasal, fatigue, where you become sluggish, where even the smallest task is exhausting. Jubn, lack of self-confidence, we could say, overly critical of yourself. Bukhl, self-centered, not interested in the welfare of others. Ghalabat ad-dain, debt. It could be your own set of mental and psychological challenges. Qahri al-rijal, the dominance of others. Ask those who work in certain circumstances, the different mental challenges that they have. So from this we can see that the different emotions that humans experience, this has been outlined in different ways in our Islamic tradition. Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. Allah says that man has been created restless. إِذَا مَسَّوْ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا. When misfortune touches him, he's filled with self-pity. He starts to lament over his misfortune. That is when we look at man's perspective in this regard. So, yes, this looks at some of the aspects in terms of how these different emotions has been spoken about and been dealt with in our Islamic traditions.
Now, what's the key difference between the Western approach and the Islamic approach to mental health?
The first is that the Western approach is all about the body. It's biological. The Islamic approach, that we as Muslims believe that a man is a combination of ruh and jasad, body and soul. And the soul is primary because the soul was created first. And it's only when the soul was inserted into the body that the body became alive. And death is not the demise of the soul. Death is the separation of the soul from the body, which renders the body a mere corpse. And then the soul then traverses into the afterlife. So you've got to nourish your body, you've got to nourish your soul. When you nourish both adequately, that's when you put yourself in a position to live optimally. So, we hear doctors talking about soul loss as soul right. It's an interesting phenomenon because they're saying that we have overnourished the body and undernourished the soul, which creates a vacuum in between, which creates that vacuum that that is where we find ourselves. So when we look at the differences, the Western approach and the Islamic approach, the Western approach is purely about pleasure and the body and how you can get maximum from that. The Western approach is if mental health is compromised, it is they focus merely from that particular aspect. You're looking from an Islamic point, we look at both from the body point of view and the soul point of view, and both needs to be in optimal condition. Another aspect is, the difference is that the Western approach confuses pleasure with happiness. There's a big difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure has got to do with your senses. It brings temporary joy, but it can never bring everlasting happiness. It has to do with physical sensation. Happiness, on the other hand, is an inner peace, a mental and emotional calmness. They say happiness is not out there, it is within. So it's not about your list or your bucket list. Happiness is enjoying the travel, enjoying the journey, making the most of what you've already had, not focusing on what you still need to get. So that is another difference between the two. Also, in terms of the Western approach and the Islamic approach, the Western approach is that they consider pain as meaningless. Pain is an obstacle in life, whereas Islam tells us that pain has meaning. Pain is it is purposeful. There's there's a reason for pain. To energize your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا يُرِيدِ اللَّهُ بِخَيْرٍ مِنْهُ. That one whom Allah intends good for, Allah will afflict. So when Allah intends good for you, Allah afflicts you with a spiritual ailment, that brings you closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some of the aspects in terms of how the different approaches are towards mental health.
And how does mental health affect physical health?
So if someone had cancer, we would not blame them for this disease in the body. The question then is that why do we place stigma and blame on mental health issues in the brain? Mental illnesses matter as much as any disease, and it can take one's life as easily as others. Depression, for example, can lead to suicidal thoughts if untreated, suicidal attempts. We are not balanced. So the mind and the body are connected. Many mental ailments cause stress, which lowers the immune system. And this means that more frequent sicknesses, inability to cope. So stress and anxiety can take a toll on one's health. According to the website WebMD, worry causes the body to release stress hormones that speed up your heart rate and breathing, rises your blood sugar, and sends more blood into your arms and legs. And over time, this can affect your heart, blood vessels, muscles, and other systems. So, essentially, when stress infiltrates our body, what happens? We start to shut down. And that is left untreated. Mental health issues then lead it to further falling apart. And then you have people then turning towards alcohol and drug as coping mechanisms. That obviously takes their body on a further downward spiral. It becomes what we could term as a cycle of destruction. It affects their physical well-being and then continues to snowball. So once stress affects one's physical well-being and the ability to take care of yourself, and this may cause a destructive pattern. So, when we reach this point, we sometimes only at that point learn that mental health is important, and therefore we've ignored it, and the consequences may reach a catastrophic level.
So, when you talk about mental health, what are the stigmas around this issue?
Yes, so in terms of the stigmas, and I think, Mullah, we're running out of time, so we'll just deal with this and then we'll continue perhaps next week with the discussion. So amongst the stigmas, and we made reference to it earlier on when we said that people will say, did you hear of any Sahabi who went to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist? Hey, it's all in your mind. People, refer to it in this way. So this is the type of stigma that you have around mental health. That stigma, it begets shame, then it has an effect in terms of the fact that people are less open to going for some therapy of dealing with the situation. It's more hushed. So the thing is that because of this negative attitude towards it, people feel shame to take treatment, or people will say, no, I'm not, I don't have any issue with my mind, or they'll think that you think I'm going cuckoos in my mind, things like that. So we need to overcome the stigma, and we'll talk more about that in terms of education and in terms of how to overcome the stigma.
It's just got 9:33. When we return, we are going to be taking your questions on 072 786 1548.
News headlines. A blitz of what's current on Radio Islam International.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From the Durban studio of Radio Islam International, I'm Anisa Isak with your 9:30 news headlines. In national news, patient fees in Gauteng's public healthcare system will increase by 4.4% from 1st April, with some tariffs surging by up to 30% pending legislative approval. In African news, fears of renewed conflict grip Ethiopia's Tigray as tensions escalate between political factions. Residents stock up on supplies, recalling the horrors of past wars. In Ummah news, Israel has launched over 35 airstrikes in Gaza, killing more than 250 as ceasefire talks fail. Officials warn of expanded military operations signaling prolonged conflict. Ryan Ball, senior Middle East and North Africa analyst at RAIN.
I think Israel is moving where we expected them to in the second phase, which is to move away from the ceasefire framework that they never really intended to see all the way through. They want Hamas to end its role as a governing authority in the Gaza Strip, and I think that they're using this moment to assert that demand. And if ceasefire talks are going to get back on track, that will likely be one of the central demands that the Israelis have, is that Hamas has to accept its end as a governing force, or even having any participation in the Gaza Strip in the future.
In international news, authorities impose an indefinite curfew in Nagpur, India, after Hindu-Muslim clashes over Mughal tomb. At least 50 police officers were injured. Stay tuned for these and other stories making headlines on the hour. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Keep up with all the latest happenings on air and online. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Radio Islam.
Allah's care is my constant. He nurtures me through His endless love, His guiding light, and the unseen blessings that shape my every step. Shaped by wisdom, embraced by love. My Lord nurtures me this Ramadan 1446, only on Radio Islam International. Have you ever been to the Ahsan store? It's filled with the most incredible items you would most certainly adore. What's more is that they deliver directly to your door. Experts tailoring locally made from our finest fabrics and throws. They can combine a shirt and a throw, calling it a show. Our fine selection of fragrances for you, your home and car will transport your senses and fondest memories to places near and far. Give something better is what we say, but don't take our word for it. Please come our way. We're just a click away on ahsan.co.za, App Store or Google Play.
Wrap it, pack it, fill it, close it, store it, pour it, throw it, zip it, sip it, or just stash it. You've got it. Stash Distributors for all your packaging and baking requirements. Stash Distributors, 6 Clare Road, Fordsburg, 011 492 00 33.
During this auspicious month of Ramadan, spread hope by bringing relief to those in need. Contribute towards Gift of the Needy's Ramadan hampers. Syria and Palestine from 2,000 Rand. India and Rohingya from 1,200 Rand. South Africa and Malawi from 600 Rand. Your generosity will ensure that those less fortunate feel the true spirit of Ramadan. Donate your zakah now. Standard Bank Gift of the Needy account 272-327-654. Call 031-271-3102. Gift of the Needy, bringing ease to those in need.
Craving the best quesadilla in South Africa? Head to Las Palmas Gateway, your 100% Sanha Halal certified family restaurant. Indulge in mouth-watering Mexican tacos and cuisine. Dine in or take away, celebrate events, special days, and catch us at food festivals. Can't make it? Order via Uber Eats or Mr. D. For catering inquiries, email gm@laspalmasza.com. Las Palmas Gateway, where Mexican flavor meets family.
Our brothers and sisters, the orphans and widows, former prisoners have no homes to return to. All schools, hospitals, and basic infrastructure has been bombed in Gaza. The Palestine Solidarity Alliance have embarked on a drive for tents, medical supplies, and much-needed amenities. Earn Thawabi Jariyah or dispense your zakat funds, and let's make a difference. Contributions can be dropped off at our stand outside Frontline Hyper Lenasia over the weekends or directly deposited into Palestine Solidarity Alliance ABSA account 4070101666. Kindly specify regarding zakat, lillah, sadaqah, etc. Call 082-513-3750 for more information.
For 20 years, Chery has been leading the way with cars that are innovative, futuristic, and built to make every journey unforgettable. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, Chery Lenasia is open. Come visit us at the corner of Protea Avenue and Nirvana Drive in Lenasia to check out our latest models and discover finance options designed just for you. Plus, keep your car in top condition with our full service department and comprehensive parts division. Call us now at 011 611 8028 or 010-591-7100 for more information or to book your test drive. Chery Lenasia, your best travel partner for life.
A space for growth and development. The Skills for Success program will help you to improve yourself and gain valuable skills while keeping you connected to the Deen with the expert advice of Mufti Yusuf Musaji. The Personal Skills Development segment is the platform to upskill and advance your individual growth. Get your questions answered live on air on the Q&A segment. The Skills for Success program, every Tuesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Radio Islam International, your progression and development station.
All right, fire up those questions and you can send them through on 072-786-1548, and inshallah we'll try our level best to have them answered by Mufti Yusuf Musaji. Mufti Saab, the first one reads, I would like to find out on behalf of someone. She wants to know, is it permissible for a wife to pay her husband's debts with her zakat money?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. No, a wife cannot give zakat money to the husband. So that will not be allowed in terms of paying zakat for the husband, to the husband. That will not be acceptable. Amongst those people that you cannot give zakat to is obviously what we term as your parents, your roots, your shoots, your offspring, as well as your spouse. One is not allowed to give to one's spouse. So essentially, by you paying your zakat to pay your husband's debts, that means you are giving your zakat to your spouse, and that will not be allowed. So the husband is not a worthy recipient from the wife.
So if she asked maybe the brother to pay it on his behalf and the brother is zakatable?
Yeah, so that can work. If the brother is zakatable and she gives the zakat money to the brother and then he pays for his brother, that would be fine. Yes, then that would be fine. But directly to give it to the spouse, the husband will not be allowed.
Mufti Sahib, please explain if an elderly person passed away, there is no azab for them. Please explain this.
There is certain narrations which talks about the fact that Allah Rabbul Izzah's special mercy comes upon a person who has reached old age, and because of that, a person can be forgiven by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. But there's no guarantee in this regard. So this is something that gives us hope that yes, when a person gets old, ikramu dhi shaybatil Muslim, that there's certain narrations which talk about the fact that I granted you the age so that I can forgive you. But that should never make us complacent in a sense that we think, I'm old now, so I'm okay, I can do as I please. Rather, saddidu wa qaribu, that we need to continue to work hard, we need to exert and apply ourselves diligently to our best of our ability, and we need to be optimistic that perhaps Allah will look at my gray hair, perhaps Allah will look at my weak body, unstable, infirm body, and have mercy upon me. So yes, as believers, we should entertain those hopes, and more so, it's always a balancing act between raja and khawf, hope and fear. And as you get older, then the ulama have written that you should have an overwhelming feeling of raja now, more focusing on the hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps that hope then would then trigger the mercy of Allah to come upon you.
If a woman becomes clean from haid today, she makes ghusl before zawal at around 12 and makes intention to fast, will her fast be accepted?
No, the fast will not be done. She needs to be clean before Subh Sadiq. She doesn't have to take a ghusl before Subh Sadiq, but she should be clean, meaning that there should be no discharge or anything, no bleeding after Subh Sadiq. So from Subh Sadiq she's clean, and if during that morning she makes the intention for fasting, then it will be valid. But if she still bled during the part of the morning, then that wouldn't be a valid fast. But though she should make what is termed as imsak. Once she gets clean, she should not eat for the rest of the day. She should abstain from food.
What happens if someone brings something to your house with gelatin in it, but you only get to find out afterwards that the person purchased the product from a store which the ingredients are doubtful? What happens then?
Look, so firstly, with regards to gelatin, there is a difference of opinion. So ikhtilaf ummati rahmah, that the difference of opinion is a form of mercy, and in an instance like this, we see the benefit of that coming to the fore. It's obviously against your principles to be consuming gelatin of animals, bovine animals that has been slaughtered in a non-halal way. If it was slaughtered in a halal way, there's no problem with that. So in an instance like this is where you get the benefit of it, in the sense that there is a difference of opinion in this matter. On the other hand, now it was beyond your control, so you should just continue making istighfar and tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking for forgiveness.
Or give it to someone who eats it.
No, if you of the opinion that people have different stances in this regard. So if you firmly have the opinion that you follow those who say it's not permissible, then in that instance, you cannot then give it to someone else. So then you should then, dispose of it.
My mom is 78 years old, a widow with no income. Is she liable to pay zakat?
So in terms of zakat, the fact that a person, whatever the age is, we have to look at the financial situation of the person. That do they own the zakat, some money that equals to the nisab amount, which is just over 10,000, 11,000 rand, around there. And does she have jewelry? Does she have excess wealth that equal to that amount? If she does have that wealth in her possession, then she will have to pay zakat. If she doesn't have it, then we will look to see whether she can receive zakat or not. So it is basically on her financial situation. That is how you gauge whether the person can receive zakat or whether the person has to pay zakat.
Recently, there has been a lot of emphasis within the therapeutic world on manifesting. How does this fit within our deen? Is it jais? Also, does Mufti have an email address that we may use to contact him? Jazakallah.
Yes, so we do have a email address. It is ym@radioislam.co.za. ym@radioislam.co.za. Obviously, in Ramadan, it's a bit hectic with all the different programs and responsibilities and Tarawih Salah, but inshallah, we'll try his best to respond to the email. The concept of manifesting, honestly speaking, I'm not familiar with this concept, so we'll have to first do some research and find out what is it all about. And once we're able to gain some understanding of it, what little we do understand is, it's the energy of your thoughts, manifesting your experience, things like that. That's all that we know about it. But I think there's further research before we can actually comment about this.
Is Surah Falaq and Nas read in the Fard or Sunnat of Fajr? And number 2, is it sinful for a person to sleep after Sehri, as I cannot sleep during the day due to the noise? Then I am very, very tired by the time Isha comes.
So Surah Falaq and Nas, in fact, the Sunnah Qiraat for the Sunnah of Fajr is to read Surah Kafirun and Surah Ikhlas. Surah Kafirun and Surah Ikhlas, that is the prescribed surahs for the 2 Sunnah before the Fajr Salah. In terms of sleeping, so look, under normal circumstances, it is makruh, it is reprehensible to sleep, after performing the Fajr Salah before the sun rises. It's makruh. But in an instance like this, where a person, you have a long day ahead and there's various other factors at consideration, so then, it's okay for you to sleep after the Sehri, after you perform your Fajr Salah, then to sleep, that would be fine in this particular instance, like in the month of Ramadan.
So do you sleep after Fajr, Mufti Sahib?
Not immediately. I try to get as close to the sunrise as possible. So once the sun rises, then if I have the strength, I wait the 15 minutes to make the Ishraq, or otherwise that is the time. So basically the makruh time is from till before the sun rises. Once the sun rises, then it's no longer makruh to sleep. And interestingly, this is the only time in the entire day really where it is makruh to sleep. And Mullah Habib, you are a beautiful example in this regard, that you optimize the mornings, alhamdulillah, utilize your mornings very beneficially, and alhamdulillah, you have the good habit of staying up after Fajr, which has always been a habit of all our seniors, our Kabir throughout the time. They would stay up after Fajr Salah, but they would then have the afternoon siesta. And it's difficult in the sense that sometimes people don't have that, accommodation place where they could take an afternoon siesta. So they require some sort of rest in the morning to be able to pull through the day.
Next time we travel in, I'll keep this in mind, inshallah. So, if one is mazur, do they have to make wudu for Fajr after Tahajjud Salah? And can one make a niyyah of sadaqah when giving out gifts for food, items, etc. to family? Same question.
Yes. So, if you mazur, you'll have to make a new wudu when the time of Fajr comes in. You cannot perform the Fajr with the same wudu that you had of the Tahajjud Salah, because with the termination of the Tahajjud time, which is essentially the end of the Isha time, that wudu then expires, and now the new Salah time enters. So you'll have to make a new wudu. In terms of giving gifts with the intention of sadaqah, yes, because it's just it doesn't fall in the category of your obligatory monetary dues like zakat or fitra or anything related to that. This is a voluntary, charity that you're giving. So if you make multiple intentions in this regard, you're giving it as a gift, you're giving it as sadaqah. The person is poor, the person is wealthy, then you're giving it as a gift. You're giving it as silatul rahim, to join family ties. You're giving it as a means of strengthening bonds of muhabba. All of that can be, incorporated into one's intention.
If I had a tooth extraction, is my fast valid?
So the tooth extraction itself will not break the fast. The issue of consideration here is whether blood or any other item or substance went down your throat. So if there was blood that went down your throat, or if there's a substance or item in the process, some chip of the tooth or some other item that went down your throat, then that would break your fast. If nothing went down your throat, then your fast would not break. It all depends on that.
So I have this issue where since my father-in-law passed away, which was about a few years ago, my husband's anxiety, etc., has worsened. Only this time he blames me every time he feels unwell. It hurts immensely, as I do everything to make his life easy, but when I slip up, I don't hear the end of it, no matter how small. It's so bad that he started shouting me in front of the kids. He says extremely hurtful things to me, and then says he takes it back. It's gone to a stage where I'm afraid of asking for anything or making any suggestion. How do I deal?
Yes, so a difficult situation. We need to look at the specifics. When people going through difficult times, they do experience different emotions. They do experience sadness, grief, different phases of it. And, I think at this time you need to think back about the old days, the old person that he was, and continue at the first instance, when we have any problem, the first thing is to firstly turn our attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask for Allah's help, give some charity and make dua. And then, inshallah, when you at times perhaps start talking about the good old days, reflect on good moments of the past, and it's natural for people to go through the different phases of grieving, and there's a period that you'll have to be tolerant. And then as time goes on and things have not normalized, then you will look at whether to see that your husband really needs help. At this stage, I suppose you need to be present and supportive and continue making dua. And then if it reaches another level of where it's become chronic, then there's further steps that need to be taken. So at this stage, I think you just need to allow him that, because of the fact that it is still very fresh in terms of the death, and that he is grieving at this time.
There's too many questions and too little time. Hopefully in the next program or the next time we chat to you, we'll take the last final question. My question is very simple. Over the last 2 years, I have been trying to reconcile with my younger brother, but to no avail. Each time I reach out, I just get a cold shoulder. Recently, our father was hospitalized. Although it was a small procedure, I still messaged to tell him about Dad's health. All I got was no reply. Please, what can I do? How do I try to sort this out? This is nearly the third Ramadan. I know this is hurting my father, but he cannot say anything so as to keep the peace, I suppose.
Very sad situation, and increasingly we're seeing situations where people are separating, brothers not talking to each other. So you've sent a message, and you've done that, but there may be some underlying reason from your particular perspective. I think if you could make the initiative, it may require a degree of courage and humility, that ask your brother that, what are the issues that you have with me? I want to talk about it. Let's talk. Let's sit. Try to make an appointment. Sit and say that, look, tell me what are the problems that you have with me. I want to rectify myself. If there's anything that I've done, I'm willing to apologize. So then perhaps if you give him a chance to air himself and to talk about what is it that is the underlying issues, that will then give him a chance to vent and to express himself, and then you can work towards that. So I think the first step would be to try to give him an opportunity to say what are the problems, and to patiently listen to that, and then look at how those issues can be dealt with and can be mended.
Mufti Sahib, Jazakallah khairan for your time. Much appreciated this morning. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A South African family emigrates to Dubai. Can they fit in